So, hello everyone, and welcome. This is the Honor Code. Dr. Michelle here with you. We're talking about leaders serving leaders as a leader. We're looking at all aspects of what it looks like to walk in our kingdom assignment, to build the church and also the organizations that God leads us to. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to have on this platform with me Jesessica Robinson-Grant. She is a special voice in the kingdom for such a time as this. And I'm going to hand it over to her to introduce herself. And then we're going to get into some conversation that's going to be a blessing to you. So, Jesessica, over to you.
Hello, Dr. Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. I am so elated. Y'all, we had some time to connect before, and I must say that Dr. Michelle is such a gift to the kingdom. I am so blessed and honored to just be sitting with you. I'm listening to her, and I'm just like, wow, give me more, give me more. So, thank you for having me and for trusting me to be on your platform. I don't take it lightly. And I just want to even affirm that the work that you're doing in the kingdom is beautiful and it's necessary, and just how the Lord is just gonna continue to open doors for you. I'm excited for you. But anyways, let me not get prophetic. Uh, it's in my veins, but let me not get prophetic. Um, Listen, at the end of this, I may have a word. I may have a word. But as Dr. Michelle introduced me, my name is Jesessica Robinson-Grant. First, I am a wife to the amazing Princeton Grant. I'm a mommy. I am a mommy. I can't believe I'm a mommy. There's a story behind that. But anyways, to the beautiful JL Ina May Grant. And I am a believer, most importantly. I love Jesus with all of my heart, with everything that's in me, because without him, I am nothing. And definitely last but not least, I am a Christian therapist. I am the proud owner and clinical director of Soul Care Christian Counseling and Consulting, where we have a mandate to journey with folks and to let them know that it is the will of the Father that they are well. So that is a little bit about me. It is a group practice, so I do have other therapists and clinicians who work with me. But that's a little bit about me. Oh, and I am an associate pastor at Freedom Life Church of Edmonton. So I'm originally from Toronto, but my husband and I moved to Toronto, to Edmonton about a year and a half ago. So I pastor with my co-laborers and friends over here.
Wow. Listen, I'm listening to you talk, and I'm just like, wow, God, thank you for giving the kingdom just the best. And the thing about it, we're not the best because in ourselves we have the greatest strength or the intelligence, but just
Exactly.
hear the grace. And I'm sure if we had the time for it, you would tell me your journey, and it
Yeah.
easy, but it is worth it. It is worth it. And now so many people will be able to drink from your cup
Mm, that's good.
and continue to say yes. So let's start off with the concept of this workshop, which is honor. And, I want to speak to it for a few moments in the sense that on
Hmm.
your journey to where you are, and I know you're going far, so there's much more to go, but have you ever considered the role that honor has played, whether in honoring your husband, honoring your leader, honoring your family? You want to speak to that?
Absolutely. I think honor is so huge. I think it's an underestimated aspect. And I also think that we don't speak to it enough. I think honor is synonymous with respect and with loyalty. And I'm probably a loyalist to a fault. One of my friends told me, I mean, I've recovered, but one of my friends said, Jess, you're loyal to a fault. But I think honor is such an important aspect of any aspect of leadership. I see honor in a reciprocal sense as well. So whether you're leading me or I'm leading you, I do believe that the aspect of honor should be reciprocal. So I think honor is so important in any relationship, right? I honor my daughter, and she's oh, no, she's definitely not 2 months. She's 5 months. She's about to be 6 months, and I honor her. This morning, I'm like, wow, my house is quiet. My daughter is not here. Her voice, she's 5 months, but her voice adds so much value to our home as a 5 month old. So I believe that honor is just a basic human quality that should be reciprocated.
Mm. Now, I love the word you use, value, because, especially as believers, when we look at social media, often our value is depicted as having this or achieving this or
Mhm.
that. Now, we know according to the word of God, it's different because He
Yeah.
sets the value of each person. And so when you
Mhm.
talk about even your daughter, beautiful daughter, and I love her name, by the way, she's going to do some mighty things, mighty, right. So it's just the idea that in her place right now, she
Mhm.
adds value to your life and to this world. And that's something to be recognized.
Yeah.
And when you spoke about loyalty, I thought of the word commitment.
Mm.
Even as we are committed to something, that is something we will honor. If there's no commitment there, then we are not going to honor it. I was going to ask, yeah, so as you go, how are some of the ways, let's talk about working with either your peers in your counseling practice or a leader that you've served in your local church. How are some of the ways that you can display that honor, that respect, that commitment to the vision, the goal, and the person?
Yeah, for sure. I think, as I said, that respect piece is so huge. I think, oh boy, I think sometimes our generation doesn't do a good job at that. The honor, the respect, the commitment. And I think I think that aspect of showing up is so key. Showing up, being intentional, and following through. So for myself, at my current home church, so I'm an associate pastor, which means that I serve with other pastors at my leadership, right? My senior pastor, and so I'm currently the pastor over the women's ministry and over the youth and young adults ministry, and then I do leadership care, right? And so, we are kind of reestablishing some things. And one of the things that I asked my leaders that I'm serving, because I also believe in that aspect of servant leadership, right? So as a leader, I serve you as well. As much as you're serving me or serving the kingdom more so, I serve you, right? And one of the things that I asked them is like, what are your expectations of me? Because I lay out my expectations of you. Here is what communication, healthy communication, respect, integrity, showing up, and following through. Oh my God, Dr. Michelle. One of my biggest pet peeves is people who don't follow through and
Mm.
you don't show up. Like, if you say you're gonna do something, do it. Communicate ahead of time. If you can't do it, then I get it. We'll work through it. We'll navigate through it. But I think I've navigated through so many systems and aspects of leadership where I'm just like, listen, I am no longer in that spot where I'm hand holding you. I will journey with you. And I think that's the important thing to realize too is that my mom would say, everybody big. So we're journeying together. I'm not holding your hand, but we're journeying together. So I think that aspect of being integral or not being integral, well, you are integral, but having integrity and just being able to show up and to follow through. Honestly, those are things that are big for leaders.
Showing up, and I've learned this in my own journey, even if you don't really know what to do, but just showing up, letting your presence be there and say, listen, I'm willing to learn,
That's right.
willing to hear what needs to, practice,
Yeah,
because only through practicing that we get better. But
that's right.
in your answer, there's so many things that you just touched on that are explosive. One of them is expectations, right? Right. I love the way that you said that you are looking for clarity of the expectation of the leader that you have, you are serving, and also being honest with your expectations as what they can expect from you, right?
Absolutely.
What I want to ask you about that is how important or what role does your own mental health and emotional stability play in knowing what to ask, knowing what your own parameters are? Like, how important is your mental health and emotional stability?
As a Christian therapist, I journey with a lot of leaders.
Mm.
I journey with pastors, all kinds of leaders. And a lot of times it's a mirror as well. But I think it's so important because you show up as yourself, healed or unhealed. You're going to show up as that version of yourself. And I have seen the I I have seen both examples of being a healed leader and an unhealed leader. And so for me, it is so important. There's actually a book that every leader should read, and the book is called The Emotionally Healthy Leader. It is, oh my God, it's like a textbook for me. Like I go back to it every now and then, but I believe that every leader, and it comes into that aspect of self-awareness, knowing my triggers, knowing my boundaries, knowing what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not my your family of origin, your childhood, all of these different things, they inform your identity and who you are, whether we like it or not. There are things that I didn't like that my mom did as a kid when I was a kid, and I do them now, right? And so for me as a leader, being an emotionally healthy leader gives me, yes, Lord, the grace and the capacity to show up well.
Mm.
It gives me grace and pace and space to show up well, because when I'm full with all of the other stuff, I don't have grace and capacity for when you are not, when you as the leader that I'm serving is not well. I don't have grace and capacity to show up for you if I'm not well. So it is like it's top tier.
I truly believe that even in difficult times, that God is still working on us.
Yes,
And
he is.
our capacity for different things and even how to process emotions very well. So, what are a couple tips? Or I know you gave us a book. I'm going to make sure I put the link for people to get it because it's amazing. But also, any other tips that you could give to us to help us, become more emotionally mature or emotionally open or just free to show up with our best self.
Yeah, for sure. I would say read, 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 read. I'm a huge reader. Read, read, read. I have like I'm looking here because I have a whole bookshelf of books, podcasts. I was educate yourself. Educate yourself, educate yourself, be held accountable. Have that I think that accountability piece is so huge. And accountability can come in different ways. It can come in mentorship, so having a mentor. And accountability also comes in like having a therapist. I mean, I'm a little biased, but having a therapist, like having somebody wow, I forgot his name, but there's one person that calls it having an empathetic witness. So
Mm,
somebody who's able to hold space for you. I personally believe it should be a therapist or a coach or something like that. But those are some ways that you can really, really just pour into yourself. So it's just an aspect of like educating yourself and pouring into yourself, because it really, truly does matter when we do that. We are able to, because you know what, Dr. Michelle, we all have blind spots, right? We all have blind spots. None of us are perfect. And so and I hear the Lord saying this because I feel like a lot of leaders don't do this often. Rest. Take the sabbatical. And a sabbatical doesn't necessarily have to mean it's a month or whatever. This is another book recommendation called Sacred Rest by Dr. Sandra Dalton. I don't know if you've read that one. So good. And she talks about the seven types of rest. One thing she talks about as it relates to sabbaticals, everybody doesn't have the capacity to take a whole month or 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever, but a sabbatical can be a day, a sabbatical can be a couple hours, a sabbatical can be a moment. So
mm.
take a moment to rest, take a moment to be, because it is in those moments of rest, even for myself. I had to navigate through so many things, and I said, Lord, in order for me to hear even deeper of what you're saying about certain aspects of what you want me to do, I need a moment.
Mm.
And we see Jesus exemplifying that. But those are my examples. Pour into yourself, educate yourself, rest, accountability.
Excellent. And as you're talking about, I'm thinking about my own journey with serving leaders and that information I wish I knew earlier because there is a courage to say, I just need a day. I'm going to get back
Yep,
to you, right? But one of my things is now as a leader, I'm just like, just communicate. Don't just drop off. I can't find you, right? Just
that's
have
right.
this and the courage because once we're talking about honor
Yeah,
value that you place on something. And
Yeah,
so in order to give honor, you must first honor yourself.
that's good.
I mean, to be able to really bring that respect and that loyalty, how I treat me is important. And
That's
so that's one
good.
of the things that I would love to have that information then, because I would have said to my leader, I'm going to be here. I just need one day just to,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll come back and give the best, So
yeah.
so now we're going to talk about the health of the emotional health of the leader.
It's the same thing, to be completely honest, in terms of, and I think that has to be modeled as us as senior leadership. I mean, I hate saying that there's tiers of leadership. I actually want to call it there's circles of leadership. I don't like tier. I mean, even though that's the reality, I like circle because when we look at Jesus, he sat and he had conversation with his leaders. He was always breaking meals with them, and he washed their feet. Like there's so many beautiful aspects, I think, and examples of leadership that Jesus leaves or left rather that we don't always follow. But that's a whole different workshop for a different time. But I think it's just an aspect. I think it really starts with us modeling healthy leadership, and so then yes, God, it gives leaders permission. It gives them permission. And so I think that what I want leaders to know that we serve is that you have permission.
Mm.
You have permission. Jesus left us the example that there is permission to go away and rest, that there is permission to withdraw, of course, with accountability and all that kind of stuff. But you have permission to take care of yourself, to pour into yourself, because I have this saying that I say and I need to trademark it. But it is the will of the Father that you are well.
Mm.
It is the will of the Father that you're well. A few months ago, in September, I actually did a soul care day for the leaders at my church, and we went through different case studies, and it was beautiful because what was so awesome, Dr. Michelle, was that what they perceived and what I perceived was so different. So it was so beautiful to watch the different minds come together. But there was an example in somewhere in Mark where the disciples came to Jesus and they were talking to him, and he said to them, it's not that he didn't care about all the things that they were doing, but he said to them, okay, now it's time for you to rest.
That's good.
He said, now it's time for you to rest. And I think it's important for us to know that the Father actually desires this for us. The Father desires that we are well. The Father desires that we are whole. And if we're not well and whole, we probably have no business being in leadership. And the last thing I would say about that is that doesn't mean perfection, because wholeness is not synonymous with perfection. It is not, right? It is not synonymous with perfection. It's about that self awareness. It's about that growth. It's about that maturity. It's about bearing and growing and developing your character in God and the fruits of the Spirit. And all of those things are encapsulated in how we take care of ourselves.
Wellness is knowing like your limits. I remember reading that book from Brene Brown about the gift of imperfection and the limits that we have. Is not to show that we are imperfect, we can't make it. It's to show that we need each other, that
Yeah,
better together, and that God, the resurrection power is actually at work. So I just love that. And see, that's one of the reasons why we're having a workshop like this and voices like yours are necessary, because even too, as we speak about leaders who, need permission, right?
mhm,
Also think of the models of leadership of decades past and the part of the generation, where it went about security and you needed to have this and you needed to show perfection in order
yeah,
for people to follow you. Now, voices like this come to kind of bridge a gap,
yeah,
close up that gap that, yes, we recognize, we value, we honor the way you're doing it before, but now there is more.
yeah, yeah.
Well, say the phrase again. It is the will of the
It is
Father.
the will of the Father that you are well, according to 3 John 1 and 2.
This is what the kingdom is.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
kingdom is learning how to take the theology of the word and walk in the spirit of the word at the same time.
So good. I love how you mirror, because I think that a lot of times people don't know how to practically apply what they hear in church, or what they read in the Bible to their day-to-day lives. And so I love being able to give people practical principles. So it's like Jesus withdrew, you can withdraw as well. Right. And showing them what that with not withdrawal, but showing them what that withdrawing looks like.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about it, because this is another theme that I walk with here at home, right? Which is that God wants us to locate ourselves first.
That's so good.
Locate ourselves first and foremost, not in our condos, our townhouse, or Edmonton or Toronto, but we locate ourselves in the abiding presence of Jesus.
Ooh,
Then
so good.
our security, we carry our affirmation of value, we carry our worth everywhere that we go. And so,
Um,
even as you're talking about withdrawing, Jesus withdrew from a physical place, but never from home.
that's
You know what I mean? Right. He withdrew from a physical place, but not
yeah,
from the place of security and trust, meaning and affirmation.
yeah,
Sometimes, and we're going to go a little deep here right now, because sometimes the physical place or the position or the role that we are in is
mm,
our sense of validation and security and trust.
yeah, yeah,
A challenge with drawing from it, because if we go, the disciples, where else are we going to go? You alone
yeah,
have eternal life. But we're like, if we go from them, then who am I?
yeah, yeah,
What is
yeah.
my essence? What am I here for?
Yeah. What does that look like? What does that mean? Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I think that a lot of, and I think we've seen it in previous generations, that a lot of leaders, um, what's the word? Tie their identity to what they do. And I think and that book, Emotionally Healthy Leader, literally, Dr. Michelle, it changed my life because I was brought up with this aspect of like what I do is who I am. And it's like, no, who you are is who you are. And what I love is when God the Father says to Jesus, this is when he just finished getting baptized, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. And I think that set the pace for Jesus's ministry, for him to say, I'm going to go away and be with the Father, because he knew that his identity wasn't necessarily wrapped up in all those things, even though there's dichotomies in that, because he's
Yeah, I did that.
yeah, he's God. But it's kind of like, yeah, but even in that, and I say this to leaders all the time, rest is in the creation model. You were created to rest as well, to work and rest. And it's kind of like, if Jesus did it, if the God of the universe can rest, so can we, right? And knowing that the affirmation, yes, Lord, the affirmation of the Father is what sets your pace as a leader. That is it. You are son and you are daughter. Even if you decide that you need a moment, it's okay. Jesus still loves you. You're a human being and not a human doing.
Yeah. And then there will be some seasons like when you gallop, and there'll be some seasons when it's a trot. But the thing about it is you need the rest to be able to discern, and also to know that there are some seasons you store up a little bit more, because as you said, now that you're a mom, right, there are other expectations, ever responsibility. And you're not going to drop baby and be like, well, I can't do anything with baby because I have to make sure everybody's taken care of in that sense. No, God is
Yeah.
going to expect you to honor the
Yeah.
that he has given you, and using wisdom of how to do that. So
I low key, I know this is your workshop, but I want to ask you a question. Am I allowed? Am I allowed?
you are allowed.
So tell me more about this aspect of the season, because I felt that so deep in my core. The seasons where you gallop, and where you trot. I literally saw the horse galloping. Tell me more about that.
Now, and I'll just say this quickly, even now with my mom has dementia, and I'm a full-time caregiver with her. And before, she was a pastor. And so God had to say to me, like, strip away that she's your mom for a second, because we know that's honoring and there's promise that, but what is she? She's a leader. So sometimes we only want to serve leaders in a particular light.
That's
And one
good.
of the things that you said earlier is that, the emotional health of the leader, when we are closer in the circles, we are privy to vulnerability.
Ooh,
And one of the part of this workshop is teaching those who serve that the idea that God has brought you that close is because you are a leader as well. You carry the seeds of the characteristics and of the grace that is needed to be able to handle vulnerability, to handle access, and to handle closeness in such a way that brings him glory. So
That's
not
so good.
just serving because, nothing that I do because I have no gifting. No, understand that you are being positioned and primed and prepared for a greater impact. And
That's
also, if you serve well, you're going to be carrying a part of the legacy of the leader in whom you serve.
that's so good.
It's a springboard,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
us to awaken to really what this assignment is
yeah.
in the world where it's all about me and what I do and everything like this. No, we are built to serve one another, different capacities. But and I'll bring in the answer to your question you're asked. But you get an insight into people's pathways. And when I
Mhm.
talk about galloping, sometimes people are galloping, sometimes people are trotting, sometimes people are walking, because we don't go through life all in one sprint.
Yeah,
We don't go through with one pace, as you said, the pace. There are rhythms of grace.
that's good.
There is a tempo for your life and how
Mhm.
we're able to, let's look at Jesus, perfect
Yeah,
example, right? Jesus came on the earth as a baby. He even went into the temple when his parents couldn't find him, when he started to gallop, but it wasn't time yet.
yeah,
He came and he submitted himself. He grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. And sometimes we don't want that growing part. We don't want the trotting part. And then there's a part where it comes where you're galloping and everybody knows your name, everybody's calling upon you. But then
Mhm.
here comes a cross.
Mhm.
And you have to kind of pull back a little bit because of the purpose for which you are here.
Yeah,
We understand for our lives that there are different paces and we are rested and we're hearing God to know, okay, God, do you want me to? And he's like, no, I don't want you to push yet. I've
yeah,
opened the door. And then when it is time to gallop, Lord, listen, your girl just needs a breather. He's like, listen, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. Push a little more because
yeah,
there's an alignment, there's a kairos that's happening here. But it's the idea of rest, as you said, knowing
yeah,
your emotional thing and
yeah,
also being a community.
yeah.
So if a leader is telling you, hey, no, I want a little bit more from you, it could be God saying, Michelle, you've got more to give.
Mm, mhm.
So that is the idea. And not only will you see it in your own life, but you will see it in the leader's life. One more thing I will say in response to what you said about like the generation before, so many things tied to their, perfection and things like that. But my friend, if we are not careful, actually, I shouldn't say that. What I'm seeing now, the same thing's happening in our generation.
Mhm.
Because now it's not so much perfection on a pulpit. Now it's perfection on the world stage. And everybody wants to have the 1,000 followers. Everybody wants to be on a global stages, and everybody wants, I'm sharing all of my life with you, and I need to see how many people liked it. I need to see how many people and so that's why God's raising up voices like ours in the kingdom
I
to,
agree.
to bridge the gap. And
Yeah.
so we want to go from one type of idolatry to the next.
Listen, I just preached a message on Friday at my church called Build Me an Altar.
Mm.
Oh, we won't even get into that. But in essence, the Lord was saying, before you build the ministry, before you build the following, before you build all that stuff, build me an altar and create space for me. And I feel like as leaders, and we see even in the Bible where it were leaders and people that were in prominent spaces that built those altars, right? And so I don't feel like this is coincidence. I really feel like the Lord is calling us as leaders to build our altars. And all that means is creating space for him, communing with him. We should not be on this journey leading God's people without him,
Amen.
right? We need him. We need his voice. We need, as you talked about, the prophetic insight. We need him. And if we are doing it on our own, then those rhythms of grace, they don't belong to us. We are out of alignment.
There you go. As we look as as leaders, let's be honest about life, right? When we start off, because of process and because of the pathway, we're close with God and all of the beauty of who He is, and we're just like, Lord, we just want to worship, and it's so great. And then responsibilities start to hit it,
Ma'am.
right? Right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then also too, the pull on I need a word every time I see you. The pull on always have the answer. The pull on that. Now you must, I'm going to use your word, be intentional to
Yeah.
keep cultivating that fire and
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So what are some of the things that you do as a leader, as a business owner, as a mama, right? As a wifey, what are some of the things that you do to keep that relationship with God fresh and vibrant?
Yeah. I think for me, it's really about that intentionality. I have to be intentional, Dr. Michelle. I have to be. And I also had to learn to give myself grace, because I'm the type of girly where I want my 2 hours of God in the morning. I want to read, I want to pray, I want to lay out and, all the things. And motherhood came and said, sis,
That was nice.
sis, you have to be realistic. And I think that's the thing for me, just in this season of my life, learning to be realistic. And I think something that I really was struggling with, and I feel a release from it, was perfectionism. Just feeling like I need to have everything ticked off. But it really was. And so let me give you an example, a real life example. So as we've discovered, I'm a mommy, right? I'm a wife, associate pastor, a business owner, all of the different things. And so one morning I woke up and I was just feeling I don't even know. I was anxious, I was tired, like all the things. I was just like, this is not my day. And my husband looked at me and he said, you need to go take a walk. And I was like, no, I need to get going. Like life has to go. And he's like, no, babe, like I'm good. I have the baby, go take a walk. And I went and took the walk and I went and took the walk and I was able to just walk and just hear the Father and just listen and to come up with solutions
Mm,
for where I was at. Um, and so, and I think this is an important thing is like when you need to have people around you that when you're not anchored, that they anchor you.
mm,
So whether it's a partner, significant other, a friend, whatever, it's important to have people around you that can anchor you. And so, if I'm honest, I saw postpartum depression knocking at my door. I
mhm,
saw postpartum anxiety knocking at my door, and I said, I'm not going to answer the door.
mm,
My response was, I'm going to go, I'm going to have this walk and this conversation with the Father, and He's going to give me strategy on how to navigate through this. And so with that, I came back and I'm like, okay, babe, here are some things that we can do, different things like that. And I think it's just around, as to answer your question, being intentional.
mhm,
Being intentional, knowing that you can meet the Father in so many different moments, in so many different ways, and again, that's something that I don't. There's this old song that we used to sing. It says, "And He walks with me, and He talks with me, and He tells me that I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, right? No other has ever known." And that for me has just been important. Walking with Jesus through my day,
mhm,
right? So getting up, turning on my worship music, not going straight for social media, things like that, really being intentional. And one of the things that the Lord was able to just, and again, navigate with me through was, okay, Jess, you're not going to get an hour in the morning. So how about you do 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening? And I was like, wow, that sounds good. You know what I mean? So just like, again, it's just walking with the Lord. He will give you the strategy. He will help you to be intentional, but you also, it's a reciprocal relationship, right? You also have to be intentional in creating the space, in creating the moments. I also joined a Monday night Bible study away from my church, right? Where I'm in a space with people that I don't know, but it's pouring into me. So it's all about all of those things, just like Dr. Michelle, where, none of these things is coming out of thin air. It's all about all those things I talked about earlier around pouring into yourself, accountability, educating yourself, having a therapist, a coach, mentorship. Those are all things that I also apply to my life where I can now say it works. So
Yes.
now you can do this for yourself.
Yes. Yes. It works.
It works.
We're proving it. We're proving it, right? We didn't just get it out of the book. We got out of the book. We're rocking it out, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And you said a couple things that are just like so beautiful. I want to start off with the one about your husband, because what it really shows me is a principle. Some people might not be married yet. Okay, we get it. But what we're saying is the principle of having people in your life that want you to
Yes,
win accurately.
that's good.
No, not just like, oh, well, do it some way and skim off the top. No, win accurately. And based on this workshop, one of the principles, the keys of the kingdom is honor. And
Mhm,
so having that loyalty, the commitment, the showing up, the integrity towards what you are serving and the people
mhm,
in your life. And he was able to help you to navigate or to continue to move forward in the direction that you set for yourself, that I'm going to honor all these commitments well, honor the people in my life. And so I just want to say that, we're going to have in our lives, does not have to be a big group, but at least
mhm.
persons that want you to win accurately, that when
Yeah,
you get
good.
to honor and say serve your leader and show up and even sacrifice at times, they're not going to be like, hey, you don't need all that, you can make your own platform. No, they will help you say, listen, I'm going to help you, maybe what can I do, because we want you to win. As you are a business owner, right,
Mhm.
slash ministry, because I believe whatever we do is
It
unto
is history, yeah.
ministry. Now you carry that assignment, and
Mhm,
within your church, there is also the assignment of the house, right?
mhm,
How do you hold two together? Do you ever see? Well, I heard you say earlier that you've done your workshops at the church, so you serve it there. But how do those two assignments work together? How do you carry them?
mhm. I think now they work better. I think in previous spaces, it's kinda like, we don't know what to do with Jessica because she's a little different kind of thing. She's a little different, right? We don't know what to do with her. But I think the beautiful part, now is that my work as a pastor now, mirrors what I've done in the past, so women's ministry, youth ministry, leadership care, literally. That's what I've done over the past years. And so I'm able to show up as myself in the space, and I carry that, right? So I bring that to my church because I think it's important to show up as an emotionally healthy leader and also to show folks how to do that, right? So funny enough, on Friday night when I was preaching, so when we were getting ready to leave the house, my husband, I was like, "Yeah, babe, like this message is a like it's a hard one kind of thing." And then he said, "Yeah, like you only ever preach two types of messages: soul care or pull up your socks." And I was like, that's funny. So then I asked the congregation just like, before I preach, I said, um, which message do you think you're getting tonight? Soul care or pull up your socks? And they're like, we know we're getting pull up your socks tonight. But in essence, it's like they know my voice
Hmm.
and what I carry, right? They know what to expect from me, and what that means as a leader in the house, kind of thing. And then another thing that I always do, and this is what I used to do even in my old church, is whenever I'm having anything or I'm doing anything, any speaking engagements, anything like that, my pastor will not be surprised.
Mm.
He will not be surprised. I always honor my pastor and say, "Hey, pastor." Actually, I don't tell him. I ask him. So when it was my own events, like I was doing like under my business, different things like that, I'd be like, Pastor, like I'm doing this thing, da 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 da, different things like that. That was a little different. But if I was ever going out to do like any preaching engagements, I'm like, they call me, they send me a letter. I'm like, hey, thank you for reaching out. I'm going to call my pastor first to ensure that I have his blessing. Pick up
Mm.
the phone and I call my pastor, and he always honored that about me. He would always say, Jess, thank you, because he was just like, sometimes I just see people and I'm like, oh, okay, kind of thing. But I always would call him Dr. Michelle, and I always would say, or ask rather, Pastor, this church called me so and so. Am I allowed to go? And he will say, yes, I will not hold you back. You are allowed to go. So I think it's that reciprocity.
Well, seriously, it may not be trendy, but
Mm,
kingdom.
mhm.
The idea that it takes nothing of you to honor the one whom God has given oversight over you, even for a season, with that,
Yeah.
of letting them know, asking permission. And I know now sometimes it's like, oh, we don't need nobody, we can do it, my gifting, my talent, but that is not going to take you far in the kingdom. And I'm not
Um,
talking, let me say when I say non far in the kingdom, I'm not talking about notoriety.
yeah, yeah,
Me. I'm
yeah.
talking walking with the authority that brings deliverance.
It was easy for me to honor my pastor before because he was older. But
Mm.
it takes great skill to honor your leaders who are your peers. So my current pastor, he's literally like one of my best friends. And so it's like, no, but even though he is role to me, he is still my pastor role. Right? So learning to honor him both as leader and friend, showing up in honor in that way. And I think a lot of our generation, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to honor the giftings in our peers because we will see it as competition, or you can't talk to me because you are, and it's like, no, no,
Mhm.
he's my pastor. I even trained myself from the pulpit not to say role, but
Mm.
to say pastor role, because that's also an just exemplifying that if I honor him as my leader and friend, you also need to honor him as your leader and friend and not take advantage, yes, Lord, of the access that I have. Because I have a different level of access to him as a leader, but also as my friend.
Mhm. That is so good. That is so good because, like, it is not just the person, but it is also the grace that they're carrying to be able to do what God has asked them to do.
The giftings, yeah.
In your own journey, as I don't say growing up, but coming up in leadership, evolving, that's a better word, evolving in leadership, right? Are there any things that you wish that you hadn't done or
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even this conversation and just going over like some of the questions and stuff like that, I was doing some introspection and I was like, man, like I can do this better, or I've done this well, or different things like that. And I think for me, especially because I was in leadership so young, um, the big thing, Dr. Michelle, is you do not know it all.
Mm.
You do not know it all. In fact, you may not even know anything. To be honest, like you do not know it all. You really don't. And it's really just learning that, learning, being humble. I wouldn't say that I was arrogant, but I would say that I was very like, I know, because this, that, and I read this here and I did this here. Chill. Because now, as somebody who is in senior leadership, I have a different level of respect for my pastor, my previous pastor. I mean, I'm just like I'm just like, wow, like you did this for 30 plus years, but I have a different level of appreciation for his wisdom, for the things he would say. I have a different level of respect and honor. We do not know it all. Sometimes we need to sit and listen and absorb, even if it don't make sense. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you're growing up, right? The things your mom would say, you're like, "Mommy, that don't make sense." And you grow up, you're like, "Ooh, mommy, that makes sense." Right? One of the things my mom used to say is, and I for the life of me, I didn't know it was a scripture till I got older. Evil communication corrupts good manners. So mom would be like, evil communication, my mom is Jamaican. Evil communication corrupt good manners. And I'm like, first of all, mommy, that's not a scripture. Yes, it is. And I'm like, no, it's not. Again, know it all. Um, and you grow up and you realize, man, evil communication really does corrupt good manners, kind of thing, right? So I would say for me is like I would want to absorb, I would have wanted to absorb more and just be like, tell me more. Like, tell me more about how you've been able to sustain and build a ministry. And I think what we don't realize is that we are building ministries on the shoulders of our forefathers. They had to build from the ground up.
It again.
They had to build from the ground up. We are standing on their shoulders because even on Friday night when I was preaching, my husband was like, "Man, you sounded like bishop here, or you sounded like elder here." And I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yes." Right. And they were able to train and cultivate. And earlier we were talking about women in ministry. My pastor released me. Oh, I feel this as a young woman in ministry. I was preaching in pulpits at 23 and 24 and 25. That is not everyone's story,
Yeah.
right? Because there's so many ministries that do not believe that women should be in leadership. That's a whole other podcast and workshop right there. But he released me. He saw the gifting that was in me and he honored that.
Mhm.
He honored that. And so I think for me it would be more gratitude as well to be like, your gift is important, but chill out. Chill out a little bit more kind of thing. And again, I wasn't arrogant. I wasn't like push up chest or whatever. But when you're young, you just have this we can be an entitled generation. We can be a generation with a chip on our shoulder. And I feel like I would have wanted to sit at his feet some more, just sit at his feet some more. So I would say those are like some of the most important things for me as I've evolved in leadership.
Listen, and what you're doing is you're giving the practicality of it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the matter is, I remember with my own leader, she would say things to me, and I'd be like, you say yes, yes. And it's only when I began to lead as a senior leader, I'm like, oh my gosh, now I get it. Just like calling, I'm like, listen, I understand. I get it. Can I throw the people out? Can I, you know what I'm saying? Right. Right. But it's the thing about it, and it's just like with everything that we have, we get gifts, talents, all those things from God's in seed form. And that is why in workshops like this are necessary to let you know the idea that he's brought you this close to a leader or to serve in this capacity is because what he is doing, he is putting you and he is ensuring that like the seed and you are purified so that
Yeah.
actually blossom. He's not going to waste time. He's not going to bring you and give you all this insight and access and everything if he wasn't going to do something amazing with your
That's right. That's good.
so
Yeah.
it's proof. It is proof that he's
Yeah.
going to use you. But remember, he's using you now.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to add this last thing, because we didn't get to touch on this. But I really want us to look at the example of David and Saul and just how David served Saul, even though David knew the giftings and the anointing and the call to his life. Saul was king and he let Saul be king.
Yes.
Saul be king. Even though Saul was doing the most, he let Saul be king. Yes, Lord. And there's a part in that story where they were going to war. I think this is specific. No, they were going against Goliath. And Saul said to David, "Here is my armor." And David said, "Nah, like I'm good. I don't know this armor. And so I'm gonna go ahead and use my 5 stones and my slingshot." And I think it's so important to know and be okay with your 5 stones and your slingshot and know that you don't need to take on the armor of somebody else. that you can have your stones and your slingshot, and you can still fight against the Goliath and stand in that leadership capacity that the Lord has called you to. But that aspect of honor that David had for Saul, even though Saul was a really horrible leader and didn't love himself, you could do a deep dive and case study into Saul. But just remember the example of David and Saul, and how when it was time for David to be elevated, that nothing could stop that.
Jesessica, this has been awesome, fabulous, and I am honored. I'm honored to be able to glean from your wisdom as a leader, as a business owner, as a parent, as a wife, and as a person who is putting in the work to be
Mhm,
able to honor God,
mhm,
honor the people whom you've been called to lead. And you're
mhm.
showing to us that it is possible
It is.
to do it well. And there are things that we will learn along the way, but we are here. Our lives are a testament to the goodness of God. And it is a message to this generation that it is possible to walk in honor and to
It
get.
is.
Is there anything you want to say before we end our conversation for today?
What I'm hearing very specifically that the Lord is saying is um, two things. I'm hearing the Lord say, wait your turn
Mm,
to some people. Just, it's okay. Wait your turn. Let them and glean and learn and wait your turn. But I made note of this last night. You reap what you sow.
mm,
You will reap what you sow. And so good. So now, so well,
mm,
so good, so well, because you will reap what you sow. There's a harvest. There is a harvest, and you will reap what you sow. So, so well, sow in integrity, sow in love, sow in joy, sow in peace, sow in humility. So well, because when you sow well, you will reap well. So,
mm.
that's what I would say.
Wow, wow. Well, everybody, it has been such a great conversation. I know that you will be blessed from it. And honestly, if your desire is to honor God and to live this life, a victory that He has called you to, and to do it well, then you will glean from these nuggets of truth, the wisdom that has been shared today. So, stay tuned. We have more coming for this workshop. Thank you so much, Jesessica, for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.